Well, hello everybody. Welcome back to Star and Flurry. Um, but I'm starting a new station to cover my um, new station channel, whatever they call it, to cover my journey from where I live to Cooper, where I live on the West Coast to, um, or I should say the Pacific Northwest, to Cooperstown, New York, and then up to Canada, to Quebec City and Montreal, and down to Toronto, and then back into Erie, Pennsylvania, and back across the Heartland. All based on the knowledge that I can get over the Canadian border and back again without issue. Anyway, so I'm going to start a new channel so that those who are interested in that can watch that and not necessarily tarot. Although I will tell you that the new channel will have tarot in it. So it just, I don't know if I always do a daily morning poll. I don't know if I'll share that. I am trying to learn how to edit a little bit. So if I do smaller clips and lump them all together for an upload, I will try to do that. I'm not sure what the new channel name is going to be. I'm thinking just something simple like Maru and Nance Go to Cooperstown, or or I was thinking of what is it? Um, uh, N and M as opposed to who's this rapper Eminem M and M. So um, so I was thinking of M and N for Maroon Nance. M and N go to Cooperstown or something along those lines. I don't know. I'll figure it out. Um, and I'll let you know by the time I upload this. I'll put a note in the description below. So welcome if you are here, and I'll put a link to the new channel below as well. And I'd love it if you'd come over and subscribe. So I wanted to do some intro, kind of a, I don't know, kind of a get to know me, kind of how this whole thing came about, um, and for those who might be interested. So my name is Nance. I have careered I was born in Seattle, raised a portion of that time in Seattle, spent my Wonder Bread years, as I like to say, in Portland, Oregon, and then careered in Seattle um, for a lot of years. And then finally retired in 2015. Well, retired, as my dad used to say. You didn't really retire, you just stopped that job and started something new, which is true. He just needed some help in Portland. He was still living there. My mom had passed away several years ago. Um, and he just needed a little extra help and companionship. And I was also at a point where I was ready to be done with my job. I'd been in customer service, hospitality most of my life, and there's a point at which you just can't do it anymore. You really are done. People are the same all the time. Um, they can be petty, asking for things that are just ridiculous, and the other downside, not downside, but it's just the fact of hospitality is it's incredibly subjective. I've made this point a lot where you could go into a Nordstrom, pick out a sweater, go through all of them, pick out one you like, try it on, see if it fits, you love it, and you buy it, and then you can return it and get your money back. Yay! But in hospitality in restaurants, it starts when you walk in. Do you like the front desk person? Are they nice to you? Did they do their job? Then you sit down at your table. Do you like your table? Or would you rather have that table? And they were unwilling to accommodate you because, somebody else is sitting there. Um, and that can taint you a little bit. Then the server walks up, and let's say you as a wife or girlfriend are watching a female server be nice to your husband, suddenly you think they're flirting. That changes everything. Or vice versa. And you haven't even ordered food yet or a drink. So it starts at the beginning and it never ends. And I feel for any server out there because they know they have to be the chameleon. Figure out a table, size them up, and play to that strength if they can. So, so anyways, I was a manager for restaurants for a long time, and a long, long time, and then advanced into director of banqueting, basically planning, event planning, that type of thing, which in the end for me was a great change because it got me back into what I really enjoyed doing was not so much managing people, but managing events, managing the table, as it were. And planning events was just in my wheelhouse. And I discovered it was funny because I thought I was really not an organized person per se, or and suffered from a fair amount of procrastination. But it turns out that I got the job because I do neither. I had been labeled years ago with those two, and it just stuck with me. And I've told this story before, but it turns out when I was first offered the job, I looked at the operations director who was offering to me, and I said, "Are you sure? Because I really, I kind of lack planning, and organization isn't my strength." And he looked at me kind of like, "What are you talking about? You can't function until you come in here and organize all of us. You can't function until everything's in place. Do you not know that about yourself?" And I didn't, because I just had carried, a 30-year-old review back when I didn't know what the hell I was doing anyways, carried those criticisms with me for my entire life. So don't let any review do that to you. Be okay with who you are, what you can be, and what you are, and what others see in you. And that's not always easy. You can't always see it yourself. So, don't be afraid to ask. I wish I had asked somebody a long time ago, because that was a big revelation for me. And I was, way past midlife, really, before I learned that. So then when I finally I didn't take the job the first time, and then I took it the second time they offered it. Um, and fell in love and enjoyed it immensely, and did that for the rest of my career until I left, with a little step back into management because they needed help, but God, that was a mess. I won't even go into it. Anyways, um, so I left to care for my dad. I did that in 2015, and he died in 2018. Saddest day of my life. Um, we always told people, thank God we get along, and we always have. And so I miss him every day. So then it was like, well, what do I do? so so I wasn't going to do anything drastic for a year, because I mean, he basically been, in a relationship with my dad, not in a weird way, but just, a loved one, for a intense 3 years, and I didn't want to make any kind of rash decisions. But 8 months later, I ended up moving to Central Oregon, and I haven't looked back. I absolutely love it here. The weather change was huge. Anybody who's grown up in Seattle or Portland, or stayed there for any length of time, it rains most of the time. The Last of Us was not off. In their what am I trying to say? In the way they depicted Seattle in their last few episodes. So yeah. So being out of the gray has been huge. When you finally don't have to be in it, it's really nice to be out of it. So anyways, so here I land. So I'm going to do, I think, probably 4 parts to this kind of intro. This one I'm going to kind of walk you through how Cooperstown even came into my life. And then I'll go on to how my camper van came into my life. And then I'll talk about and then the third one will be how the camper van went out of my life. And then in the fourth one, I'll talk about how the camper van came back into my life. So first things first. So it was probably barely 6 months after I'd taken this banquet event planning job within my company that I got a call from a guy named Mark from Rochester, New York, who was putting together an alumni event for, I think it was I don't know if it was University of Rochester or Rochester Institute of Technology. It was one of those. He's bounced back and forth a little bit. So, but whatever. He's putting together, I think it was an alumni event, and I'm sure it was, because he was basically I think for most of the time I knew him, he was a admissions director, or assistant director of admissions for the University of Rochester. But he had a brief stint in alumni relations. And so he was putting together an event in Seattle for Seattle alumni of the University of Rochester. I think it was, I'll just assume it was, I don't know. And he's a baseball fan, so he wanted to do it. And he is a huge fan of Seattle sports. And I'm not sure the origin story on that, except for the fact that when he was young, like way younger, he a new team was starting in the NFL called the Seattle Seahawks, and he thought, I think I'm going to root for them. And over time, he just became a huge Seahawks fan, subsequently a huge Seattle Mariners fan, subsequently a huge Sounders fan, the soccer team, and now a Kraken fan because of hockey. So, but at the time, he's basically Seattle Seahawks fan and Mariners fan. And we had just a rolling team back in 2000, 2001. Ichiro Suzuki, Edgar Martinez, Ken Griffey Jr., Jay Buhner. God, I can't name them all, but those are kind of the top 3, 4. Jamie Moyer, my absolute favorite pitcher. So anyways, and we were doing pretty well. So it was a fun couple of years. And he called and he landed on my restaurant to come to lunch and then walk over. We were located fairly close to the Mariners field at the time called Safeco Field, and so he thought we'll do lunch there in a iconic Seattle restaurant, and then over to this game. And so over a period of time and phone calls, we bonded over baseball, and he taught me a lot about the game. I mean, I was still kind of a learner. I may tell that story down the road, but a pretty big Mariners fan, and he had been following sports for a very long time, so he kind of had a lot to teach me, and that was great. And I just loved it when I'd pick up the phone and he was on the other end to kind of organize whatever we were organizing. So, and we just got to know each other over the phone. And it ends up I was going to be out of town when his event was happening, but I put him in good hands and everything went swimmingly. And subsequently, I think he put together a couple of other, I'm sure he did put, obviously, a couple of other events together. And so at one point, so we talked a lot. Sometimes about putting an event together, sometimes just talk. And so at one point, he's coming out and he goes, this was maybe 2005. It seems to me it was 4 years after we had met over the phone. We've yet to meet in person. And he calls to say, hey, I'm putting an alumni event together. Not with you guys. We're all going to Gordon Biersch. I don't even know if they're still around anymore, but it was kind of an up-and-coming craft brewery, cool restaurant kind of thing in Seattle. And he said, do you want to meet me over there? And I was like, okay. Now, anybody who's watched any of my videos before knows that I'm an incredibly strong introvert. I appear extroverted. I am very good at being extroverted, but it is not my wheelhouse normally. It exhausts me. That was another reason getting out of general management of a restaurant was the best thing that ever happened to me, because I was finally in an office by myself, dealing one-on-one with people rather than in a frickin' restaurant of 500 people and 25 staff trying to organize all of them. It was just bleh. So anyways, so he calls, he said, so will you come over? And I was like, yeah, okay. And I was all excited. And then I hung up the phone and I was like, oh my God, what have I done? What have I said yes to? Because I was just, I was nervous. I hadn't met him in real life yet. What is going on with this hair thing right here? What is this? There we go. And anyways, and don't get me wrong, there's no relationship going on here outside of being friends. He's 9-10 years younger than me. So, and he had various assorted girlfriends. We would talk about, oh my God, the stories I could tell, but I won't. Anyway, so I'm going to meet him at Gordon Biersch, and I think that we decided to also do a show, like meet at Gordon Biersch and then do a Broadway show. He loved musicals, and I'm not a huge fan of musicals, but that's because I'm just not familiar with them. But I love going to live theater, so I thought, well, let's give it a shot. So we plan to meet at Gordon Biersch at this alumni event and then go to this show later. So I go over to this alumni And I'm like, I'm so not comfortable because first of all, I'm not an alumnus or whatever it's called. I don't know anybody here. Well, most people going to alumni events halfway across the world from where they went to school doesn't know anybody either. They're all from different graduating years. Nobody knows each other, but at least they have a common thread. And I did not have that common. My common thread was the presenter, was the host of the event. That was my common thread. And so it was a little nerve-wracking. But the good news was is we hadn't sent any pictures of each other. It wasn't that kind of thing. But we had, I knew he was tall, and he knew I was very short. He was 6'3", I think, and I'm 4'11". So we kind of figured we'd figure out who each other was when we got there. So, and I will tell you, I went back and forth about bailing because I was so uncomfortable for this whole thing. But anyways, I went. And I went and I walked in and I was like, oh, give me a drink. God, give me a glass of wine. And so I'm just kind of standing in the corner, just, doing my thing, trying not to look too like I'm not participating, but also I'm not participating. So then he says, well, let's all move into the conference room. I've got a little presentation to do. And so everybody there, I want to say 20, 25 people there. And the conference room was set up with this huge table with how many ever chairs and then kind of a presentation thing at the front. And he goes up to the front and immediately starts talking. And I can see why he's so good at what he does. He's participated in Toastmasters for a really long time, public speaking. He's very good at it. And so I'm sitting there kind of, okay, fine, whatever. And he starts talking. And then he says the thing, he says the line, sorry about this hair, that most introverts hate to hear, which is, so I'm going to give a little presentation and then why don't we go around the room and, introduce yourself and tell me what year you graduated and what you studied and, anybody that you might know here, and we'll do that after the presentation. And I'm sitting, if you looked at the table in a clockwise position, I was in about position 1 o'clock, 1:32. So I had, about 2/3 of the group to get through before they got to me. All the more time to just get nervous and sweat the whole thing out. So he does his presentation and he starts going around the room. And I'm getting more and more nervous the more closer we get to me. Because what am I going to say? Hi, I don't belong here. I'm not an alumni. I'm just a friend of you're the presenter here. What do I say? And I didn't know. I thought, well, I'll do what I usually do, just wing it. And so he's at the person next to me, and I'm like, oh my God. So they get done, and he kind of, points to me, and he goes, now, before you speak, let me just tell you that there's an intruder in our midst, and it's this woman right here. Am I correct? And I'm like nodding like this, like I don't have to open my mouth. And he goes, okay, she's a good friend of mine. We've been working together for over 5 years on these alumni events, and I asked her to come over here so we could finally meet in person. And everybody's like, oh, how good is that? Suddenly I'm part of the group. So he basically just, and he goes, she's, a Pitzer alumni. She didn't go to UR or RIT or wherever we were representing that day. And he goes, but she agreed to come out of her comfort zone and join me here at this event. So I hope you'll all give her a warm welcome, which they did. And then he moved on. I didn't have to speak at all, which was like, thank God. And it's not like I spent any time talking to him about my introversion, because he's highly extroverted. But I think he just knew. He knew what it was probably like to be in a room of people that you don't know. It's a little intimidating. So anyways, I walked up after the presentation and just said, good to meet you. Thank you so much for giving me that out. And he's like, oh, yeah. He said, I could see your face getting redder and redder and redder the closer I got, which I just thought was hysterical because it probably was. So anyway, so we became dear friends. We went to the show. We had a great time. And then he jumped back into admissions, and he came out all the time to Seattle because that was in his area. Hold on, I got to get rid of this guy. Oh, what? Oh, interesting. So what was I going to say? So he just so he would come out to Seattle all the time because that was his territory, to do admissions work. He'd line up lots of interviews and things like that. And I lived near downtown, and he always stayed near downtown. So we always found a way to get together for a night or two of dinners and talks and this and that. And then he would occasionally come out. Oh, my company that I worked for had season tickets to both the Seahawks and the Mariners. So whenever he was in town and it was any of those seasons, I would get tickets. So we went to a lot of games together, blah, blah, blah. So that's how the friendship continued. And I've known him now since for 24 years. One of my dearest friends, I would say. He's now married, has a 11-year-old little girl who's a doll, and his wife is great. Her name is Beth. So we just get along. We all get along great. So back up a few years, and I am with it's probably it has to have been 2016. And my dad is still living in his condo, and I'm basically living with him. And we happen to have the TV on, and we are watching I don't think we were really paying much attention to what we were watching, but it was the Baseball Hall of Fame induction ceremony for I don't know who was going in. And my phone rings, and I pick it up, and it's hey, it's Mark, and I go, oh, hi. Sorry, I have an itchy nose. He go, hi, how you doing? And he goes, I'm good. Are you watching the Baseball Hall of Fame induction ceremony? And I go, actually, we are. And he goes, well, look for me. I'm the one in the Mariners hat. Now, so anybody who's seen this ceremony, they do all these kind of drone shots of this huge crowd. Everybody's got their team gear on. So, you're never going to pick the person out. So we all laughed very hard about that. But anyways, he said, who's getting in next year is Ken Griffey Jr. You ought to come. And so my dad is hearing half of this conversation. I didn't have him on speaker. So I was like, yeah, no. I don't think I'm going to make it to Cooperstown next year to see Ken Griffey Jr. get inducted, but I can watch it on TV. And he goes, no, really, you should really consider it. And I'm like, Mark, I can't afford it. I'm kind of, kind of not really caregiving. I'm more companionship at this point. Dad was pretty healthy and could take care of himself. And all of a sudden I look over and Dad's going, go. And I'm like, hold on a second. And I go, what are you saying? And he goes, I'm saying go. You should go. Go. And I'm like, Dad, I don't have a job. I can't afford that. And he goes, on me. Go. And it's on me. And I'm just like, my dad has offered up some amazing things to me on occasion. And I usually try to turn them down because it's just, I want to take care of myself. And then he just looks at me, he goes, don't look a gift horse in the mouth. Don't be an idiot. And so this time I'm going, okay. So I got back on the phone with Mark. I said, I may be able to plan this. I may make this happen. Well, Dad is helping me make this happen. So let's put it on the agenda. So this was a year coming up, in a year. So, because we would have been talking July of 2015. So I had just retired. I retired in June. So, of 2015. So I'm planning a trip a year from now to go to Cooperstown. And since I was going to be on the East Coast or Eastern Coast area, I wanted to, my mother's family all hail from Canada. And that's a whole nother story, but that's where my mom's roots are. And I thought I should go up there and check it out and see what I can find out. They hail from, well, we thought it was Brantford, but actually I still have my grandmother's, or my mom's birth certificate, which notes her mother and where her mother was born. And her mother was born in Woodstock, Ontario. So now my Nana, my great-grandmother, always said it was Brantford, but I think it was because Brantford was just bigger than Woodstock was kind of smaller at the time. Anyways, so I planned this trip. I don't fly. I hate flying. I dislike it intensely. And so I decided to take the train. So you take the train from Portland or Seattle. In this case, I took it from Portland because that's where I was. Portland, that's called the Empire Builder. And it drops you off at Union Station in Chicago. And then I jumped onto the Lakeshore Unlimited, which goes basically the Lakeshore all the way, Buffalo, I have Buffalo, Rochester, and then all the way down to New York City. But I got off in Rochester, and my friend Mark picked me up, and I rented a car, and we all went to Cooperstown. I'm trying to remember if this is the year that I met up with my. I also have cousins in the Washington D. or a cousin and her partner in the Washington D.C. area, and then cousins out here that were also coming out. And I can't remember because I ended up going to another one, so I can't remember if it was that one or the following one that I went to that they all came. But anyways, it was this huge event, and we had so much fun, and it was so good and so moving. Ken Griffey told a really funny story. He could barely keep his tears at bay, and he said, at the beginning of all this, I asked Randy Johnson, who had gotten in like the previous year, a couple years prior, maybe, what I should, if he had any advice. And he said, Randy Johnson told me, when you get up to the podium to give your speech, don't look at your kids. That's just don't. It'll kill you. And he said the first thing I did when I got up to the podium was looked at my kids, and now here I am, this bumbling mess of over emotional tears. But it was so moving, and everybody in the crowd's crying too, because it was just, we knew, you think it's just another award or whatever. He knew he was going. He knew 10 years ago he was going to be in the Baseball Hall of Fame. But when you get there, it's a whole different deal. It must be for those guys, because that's wow. So anyways, and did he come back to the Mariners for one season? He went to play for Cincinnati, and I think he came back for like 1 year so he could go into the Hall of Fame as a Mariner, which I thought was really cool and really special that the Mariners accommodated that. I don't even know if he played, but he came back as a Mariner. So, anyways, so we had a great time. New York, upstate New York is beautiful. I had a magical time in Canada. I stayed in Quebec City, which is now my sister city. I want to go live there. I've actually looked at property there, but it's on the other side of the United States from me, and that's a long ways. And it hasn't made sense. But I'm still open. Anyway, so we went to that, and then 2 years later, I think it was that was 2016 to maybe 2018. I might have dates wrong, but Edgar Martinez was getting in, and I was like, well, I gotta go. And so I called Mark, and Mark's like, well, I know you probably already have your ticket, and I go, I do. And so I did basically exactly the same trip. I went to got on the Empire Builder under the Lakeshore Limited, got off in Rochester, rented a car, and then we all went down. I think that's when I met my cousins and everybody. We're all there. We just had a blast. And went there and had just a grand old time. Went to the induction ceremony. Very moving once again. And then I went back up to Canada, to Quebec. The first time I went up to Montreal and Quebec City, and then down to Toronto, and then back over the border there. But this time I decided I really it was Quebec City that I wanted to see again. That's where I wanted to go, so I did that. And so that's what I did. And I did it again, and it was just the best thing ever. Ever. You ever been someplace where you just felt like you had lived there before? Because that's what it felt like to me. So, Quebec City, that is. And so it was just a remarkable trip. So, on my itinerary moving forward has been going to Cooperstown to watch Ichiro Suzuki, who is kind of the third member of that group of three that brought the Mariners so much joy for those few years they were there, playing so well. And I just was so sure that Ichiro became eligible to be on the ballot this year. I was so sure he would get in on the first ballot that I went ahead and made reservations ahead of time, at least for a hotel over there. Usually I stayed in Utica, but I wanted to be a little bit closer, and it's hard to get right in Cooperstown, plus it's super expensive. So I got a little place in just south of Cooperstown, which is like 20 minutes, and rented a car there for that, so I can tool around doing that. I did that, but then the question was, am I going? How am I going to get there? And at the time, I had a camper van. And I thought, you know what? I've always wanted to drive across the U.S. Let's just do that. So that's what I decided to do. But then it turns out, then it turns out, and I'll leave a lot of this for the next segment. How much am I into this for? About 30 minutes. Perfect. But then I just wasn't sure if I could do it. Not that I could. I knew I could do it. That's not that. It's like, am I going to enjoy this? I was not having good camping experiences in my camper van. And it had a whole, and this kind of a teaser for the next one is I really, and I've talked a little bit about this throughout my tarot videos. So, but I really had, I felt like if I was going to be in a camper van, I should, be a nomad and not ever pay for camping and blah, blah, blah. And the thing is, when you put yourself in that situation, especially as a female solo traveler, you are putting yourself not in the best places, or you end up not being in the best places. I didn't want to spend the night in Walmart parking lots. I didn't want to be on BLM land. It made me nervous and it scared me. And I had a couple of good camping experiences, but the bulk of them were not. And I was just scared and just locked myself in my van and huddled there until the morning and was thankful that the boogeymen out there hadn't found me, that kind of thing. And it was just like, I'm just really not good at this. And I don't think I'm going to be good enough to do this. So I kind of put that out of my mind and decided to sell the camper. So next stop is I'll talk about how I ended up getting into the camper in the first place, and then some of my experiences, and how that went. So we'll go from there. So thank you for stopping by. Again, I will post this in Star and Flurry and also on my new channel. And I'll probably I don't know how to do this. Yeah, I'll make the new channel public. Part of my dilemma is my family doesn't know that I have a tarot channel, and I'm not sure I really want them to, unless they've stumbled across me somehow, because it's just a thing they don't get, and I don't want to bother them with it, or feel that I'm doing tarot and my family's watching. That I just think that would not that the tarot would confuse. It's not that. It's just I'd rather be talking to you than my family, and if I knew they were watching, then I'd be talking to them, so I don't want to go there. Anyways, so I'll keep you posted. I'll keep info below. Thank you for stopping by. Thank you for joining me on this trip. I think it's really, knock wood, it's going to be really fun and funny, no doubt. Let's hope. Okay, talk to you later. Bye.